that's it for the tag.
We thought about that before we filmed.
We did for once.
Hey! So we might not be able to words good, but we totally planned who we were going to tag.
We did. Hey, it's Sue.
And Megan in the restricted section.
And today we're doing Josh's Scholars book tag.
Yes, and we were tagged by Josh.
Yes, from Literary Gladiators. So we'll post his original video down below. We're very late. I don't know why I'm waving this pin around like a wand. But we're pretty late doing this tag, so we apologize. We're very behind on our tags.
We are a bit behind.
Yeah.
So while we do this tag, we are going to drink London Fog from Shorts Brewing Company.
We thought it sounded real classy to go with a classy book tag.
And this gentleman on it look, he looks very fancy.
And this is an English-style brown ale brewed with Earl Grey tea, vanilla, and lactose.
Which lactose sounds gross, but
we've drank something that had lactose in it before.
And it was good, I think.
I don't really remember what it was. Yeah, but this is by Shorts Brewing Company in Elk Rapids, Michigan.
My home and native land.
Just Michigan, not Elk Rapids.
Right, yeah. Just Michigan in general.
It's pretty good. Brown ales aren't like my favorite, but I like it.
It's different. I can definitely taste the creaminess of the lactose.
Yeah, it mostly tastes like vanilla to me.
Same.
But it's good.
Yeah, not bad.
I like it. Alright.
So,
pull up the questions.
I wrote them down too if you want to look at this.
Oh, okay.
I was redundant. So yeah, I guess we'll just get started.
So the first question is, which lesser-known writer do you feel more people need to read and study?
I'm going to go with Becky Chambers for this one. She wrote The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and then she wrote the sequel to that, which was A Closed and Common Orbit. And I really loved the way that she developed the world and the characters, and yeah, so even though the books were not, especially the first book, wasn't super plot-driven, it was still a really awesome book.
Yeah.
And I loved all the different characters and all that, so.
And I said Colin McKay, who wrote The Song of the Forest, which I read last year, and it was just so beautifully written.
It's beautiful.
His writing, I really need to read more by him. He was mainly known as a poet, and I mean, you can tell in his writing that he was a poet, because it was just so beautiful. And I don't know, aside from Megan, who I made read the book, read the book also, I don't know anyone else who's read Colin McKay, and nobody knows who he is. And I just thought that book was so good.
It was beautiful.
And so I really wish that more people would read it and him in general. Yeah.
Yeah, I would second that. So which well-known writer do you feel garners too much attention or is studied too much?
I said Colette Hassini, who wrote The Kite Runner, as well as 1,000 Splendid Suns, and I think a couple others. I've only read The Kite Runner, and that's the work of his that is like most well-renowned, I think, and I've heard a lot of people say that they read that book and like had to read that book in high school. I think I was a little too old to have had to read it, but I think it's maybe on the criteria now, and I just thought that book was just bad. It was like not well written, and it was just not a good book. And I think that surely there's a book that covers the same type of subject matter that is better written than that book that could be studied in its place, because it was just not good. And from what I've heard, 1,000 Splendid Suns is similar. So I just don't understand why he's so well renowned, because he's not a good writer in my opinion.
do not like. I said Walt motherfucking Whitman, because I hate Walt Whitman's poetry. I hate it. I'm sure he was fine. I don't have anything against him as a human, but I hate his poetry. It's too long. That's really my only problem with it. It's too long.
It's too long.
No, it's not. That's part of my problem. It goes on forever. It's like super pretentious. My eye just started twitching. That's how much I hate Walt Whitman. I'm on one about Walt
I've
Whitman.
had multiple people tell me that I contain multitudes because I'm so eclectic.
That's nice.
So
That's
it kind
a
of
nice
makes
thing
me
to
like
say.
Walt Whitman a little, but
I don't like him. I don't like him.
all right. Question 3: a writer or work you believe will be in the canon by 2050.
And I said The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood because I think that it's particularly relevant to political events right now. And you know, they made it into a show because it's super relevant. And I just think that perhaps in the future it's something that will be maybe dissected in classes and part of the canon that people are required to read. And you know, it might be even more so if certain political events come to be. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. But yeah, I just
Or
think
less so if it becomes banned.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I just think that it's startlingly relevant right now. And
And I said Octavia Butler. I tried not to answer Octavia Butler for too many questions. But she will come up again.
I
just
promise.
so you know. But yeah, I think that she is kind of already doing that, becoming part of the canon, because I actually was introduced to Octavia Butler in college because I had to read Kindred and also one of her short stories, Bloodchild, for my women's lit class. So I think that Kindred especially, I think, is like kind of already a little bit in there. But she's definitely, in the past like couple years, she's really become a lot more well known. She was like the Google
yeah, she was a
art,
Google image. Yeah.
About a month ago or so. Yeah, and I think that her works are also very relevant.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, a writer from your area that you believe deserves more recognition.
I said Daniel Woodrell, who wrote Winter's Bone. That's his most well-known work. And I've only read 2 of his books so far, Winter's Bone and Woe to Live On. But I really liked both of them. I think he's a good writer. He's from here in the Ozarks, and I think most, if not all of his books are set in the Ozarks. And there's not a lot of books set in the Ozarks. So it's nice to see someone write about this area, even though it's maybe not the most positive representation, but I can't say that it's not accurate, so...
That is fair. That is very fair.
Yeah, but I like his writing, and yeah, I think people should read more than just Winter's Bone.
Yeah. No, I don't really have an answer for this question because I couldn't think of another author who writes about this area.
Yeah.
But I would kind of, you know, second what you said. I read Winter's Bone. That's my only experience with Daniel Woodrell, but that was a really good book, and his writing is really nice. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Question 5. A deceased writer you felt should have won a Nobel Prize in literature.
Literature, and I think we both said
Octavia Butler.
I think that she's able to do things with her writing that, you know, maybe a lot of people can't do. I looked up when I was, you know, trying to come up with an answer for this question, that, because I immediately thought of Octavia Butler, but I was like, well, what are the criteria to win a Nobel Prize in literature? So I looked that up, and it was super vague. It basically just said like an outstanding work. I think it used different verbiage than that, but that was basically it.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well.
Yeah, I was kind of looking through the list of like past winners, and they were pretty much all over the board, so.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think Octavia Butler is able to write about a lot of really relevant and important topics in very creative and unique ways, and I think that that's important. So. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think you said it pretty well.
Okay, so question number 6 is a living writer you feel should win a Nobel Prize in literature.
And I said Marlon James. The only book of his I've read is A Brief History of 7 Killings, but that book was like a fucking masterpiece. It was really good, and to my knowledge, I think he only has one other published book. which I would like to read, but if it's, you know, as good as A Brief History of Seven Killings was, then I don't know. I was just like in awe of that book after I read it. It gave me like a total book hangover, and it was just
That's pretty awesome.
amazing.
I want to read that. That sounds pretty awesome. I said Margaret Atwood. She's another of my favorite authors. I think that she writes really relevant things. I like her writing style. It always takes me a little bit of getting used to, because I think it's kind of unique. And so every time I read a Margaret Atwood book, after having read other things, it always takes me a while to get like reoriented to her writing style. But I just really love her, and I think she writes about important things. I dig it.
I need to read more by her because so far I do not love her.
I would try The Blind Assassin because I really love The Blind Assassin.
Okay. Is it your turn to read or mine?
I think it is
Yours.
Okay. Question number 7 is a writer who you feel needs a complete anthology of their work.
I said J.R.R. Tolkien. I don't know if that's possible yet because I think his works are still being published.
Oh.
I think because there's one that just came out recently that his son edited and put together. But yeah, I think it'd be really nice because it can get a little like confusing, like what order to read things in, and so it'd be nice to have like
Have it
an
all
anthology
compiled.
that tells you like, here, read them in this order. Yeah, and just to have it all right there at your fingertips.
Right there at your fingertips.
Yeah.
I said Toni Morrison because I think she's fairly prolific, and it would be nice to have all of her works compiled in one place with maybe some notes about, you know, her and what was going on in her life, you know, as she wrote
still
each
alive?
thing. I think she is, so it's not possible yet, but eventually. I'm pretty sure she is.
I'm pretty sure she is too. Yeah, I was going to put her for the living author you think should win a Nobel Prize in Literature, but she already won one, so.
She did. I saw that when I was looking at past winners. She, yes, is still alive. She's 87
Oh, wow.
years old. So,
All right, question 8. A translated work you feel deserves recognition.
I went with We by Evgeny Zamyatin. That's kind of like the granddaddy of dystopian novels, of the modern dystopian novel. But it was the inspiration for 1984 in a lot of ways, and it was translated obviously from Russian, in case you couldn't tell from the name. But yeah, I think I liked it better than 1984. I think the protagonist was more likable, but you can definitely see parallels and similarities, and I think 1984 is more widely recognized than We is.
Yeah, definitely.
But We pretty strongly inspired 1984. So
I feel like you look so short.
I'm leaned back. I was leaned back. I was chilling.
And I said A Planet for Rent by Yas, and this was translated from Spanish, and it is a sci-fi novel, which I feel like sci-fi novels often don't get the recognition they sometimes deserve.
True. Very true.
Anyway, but this book is an allegory for communist rule in Cuba specifically, but I think it could be, you know, applied to other nations as well. But yeah, I thought it was really good. He used, you know, aliens and kind of all of Earth and all of humanity was kind of like the lower class. And then aliens, these very powerful aliens, just treated humans like dirt.
Garbage.
And so it really like was kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it kind of made it more
Universally relatable?
Yeah, like universally relatable and like more impactful, because it's
Okay.
like all of humanity is just like being
Subjugated
squashed
and-
under the boot of these
E.
aliens.
E.
And so it really, yeah, it just makes a really big impact, I think. Because it's easy, I think, sometimes to kind of forget about these nations, especially like smaller nations that are going through this kind of thing, and just, well, it's not me, so whatever, but it's like when you apply it to all of humanity, it becomes a lot more
relevant and startling. Yeah.
But I thought it was really good, and I just think that adding aliens makes anything more interesting.
Same.
You want it to be interesting?
Aliens. Pride and Prejudice and aliens. Walt Whitman
it didn't work.
And aliens.
Pride and Prejudice and zombies was not more interesting. But
maybe I'd like Walt Whitman better if he wrote about aliens. So question 9 is a work of nonfiction you feel needs to be studied.
I said White Trash, the 400-year untold history of class in America, I believe is the subtitle, by Nancy Eisenberg. Yeah, I think that a lot of people in the U.S., and I mean, I'm sure it could be applied in other countries as well, but could stand to read that and study it and kind of understand more about poor people in America, and more about like poor white people in America, because I think that they're often like very villainized. And it's, I mean, it is true that often poor people are, you know, have like, you know, racism and things like that, and so it's like understandable to dislike them.
Right.
But also, I don't know, I think reading that kind of made me realize like how they're kind of like, can I not find fucking words?
I can't words good today, it's fine.
How the government like kind of purposefully keeps them down and keeps them, you know, thinking those kinds of things.
Keeps perpetuating those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it made me have like a little bit more like empathy for some of those people. And I mean, I'm not saying that all poor people are racist or anything like that either, because that's obviously not the case. But yeah, like I said, I think in the U.S., poor white people are often kind of villainized and thought they're just lazy, and that's not always the case. And I think that book was really eye-opening for me as someone who's not super well educated when it comes to like history and things like that. There you go. That's all I have to say, because I can't form words today.
Hey, let's do a scholars tag when neither one of us can words good.
Yeah,
let's do that. I have 2 picks for this one, kind of to make up for the fact that I didn't answer the question about a writer from my area. So the first one is Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doty, which is a book about kind of the death industry in the U.S. And I think that's important because I think people have all of these like preconceived notions and superstitions and things about death and what happens to you when you die. And I think that book is a really good kind of primer into, you know, death industry in the U.S. and how it's basically a ripoff.
Yep.
So I love that, and Caitlin Doty is awesome.
Yeah.
We went to a book signing of hers, and we watched her do like a 30-minute talk or something like that, and she was just super engaging. And
really nice.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
The second one is a collection of essays, so I don't know if it counts. I mean, they're nonfiction essays, but it's Not That Bad, Dispatches from Rape Culture, which was edited and collected by Roxane Gay. But there are, I think, like 30-something essays in that about different individuals' experience with sexual assault and rape. And it was really powerful. And I think really, really relevant because it talked about all different kinds of experiences, and it was a lot of different, you know, diverse people. There were a couple of essays in there by men, so it was very inclusive, and I think that it did a good job of recognizing how widespread rape culture is and how much it is perpetuated. And so I think that it's a valuable read for anyone, because if you have not experienced it, it will help you, it will enlighten you about it. And if you have experienced it, which is much more likely, then it will let you know that you are most definitely not alone. So it was very good. Yeah. So question 10 is, if you could teach any 5 literature-based classes, what would they be? And this could be whether, classes that already exist or classes that do not already exist.
Yeah. And I don't know how many of mine exist or not. But the first one I said would be science fiction and our world. So this would be about how writers use science fiction as a way to talk about things that are relevant in our world now. And next I said women in literature. So this isn't not literature by women, but like how women have been represented in literature, from the past up until now. Then next I said I would want to teach a case study of Octavia Butler.
Which would be awesome. I would take that class.
Yeah, because I think Queen Octavia needs to be studied and read extensively. Next I said I would teach the evolution of language through literature, so kind of analyzing the language used and writing style and things like that of literature in the past and literature now. And then I said elements of horror, so like what makes a horror novel scary, kind of, like
what has to be included in there to build the scariness.
Because I think it can be difficult to write. Like, I think it's easier to make a movie scary than it is to make a book scary. So, yeah, like, and maybe comparing the two, like, horror movies versus books.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, those are my 5 classes.
I would take those classes. So my first one is just dystopian lit, broadly. Because y'all know I love dystopian literature, and I think that genre really, I mean, it's a lot of social and political commentary, obviously, and I think that, you can easily relate a lot of those books into historical events and current events. And then I said also female-centric dystopian specifically as its own class, because there are a lot of those types of books out and coming out here, lately. I also said tropes 101 because I think it would be funny. And also I think it's helpful to recognize, common tropes in literature when you're reviewing and evaluating books. Because for me, I know if a book is super trope heavy, I don't feel like it's quite as good as a book that's not.
Yeah.
So I think that it, kind of cheapens it a little bit. Plus I just think it would be funny. I also said, I don't know how I would execute this, but translated works, and how translating a book from its original language changes the story or impacts the story or affects the story. But I think that would be tricky to do because you'd have to have someone who is, fluent in a lot of languages collaborating to help with that. But and then lastly, I said mental illness in literature, because that is a subject that is near and dear to my heart, because that is what my degree is in and that is what my career is in. And I think a lot of times mental illness is not portrayed well in literature, so I think it would be interesting to examine in different, different works how mental illness is portrayed and how accurate that portrayal is. So, yeah.
Alright, so the last question is, who do you tag?
And we would like to tag Amy from The Dusty Bookshelf,
and Matt from Paperback Junkie,
and Amber from Amber Unabridged.
So let us know what you thought of our answers here, and would you take our literature classes?
Would you enroll in these classes if we were to offer them?
Yeah.
At the restricted section university
of
literature.
Another good class would be like banned books.
Class
for just reading banned books.
That would be super fun. We should start
and examining why they were banned and etc.
And why they're important and shouldn't be banned.
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right.
We
just got all kinds of ideas. We're just going to start our own literature
university. It'll be an online university.
And you get no degree.
No. You have to pay a lot of money
to not get a degree.
Right. You'll get a certificate of completion for your troubles. So, yes.
But I like this beer.
Yeah,
It mostly just tastes like a vanilla-y brown porter. Brown
ale. I didn't like the first drink of it, but I like it now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But, I don't know, do you taste a little bit of tea in there? Maybe a little.
In the after bite, I think I taste it.
Yeah, but it's pretty good.
Pretty decent.
Like I said, brown ales are never really my favorite, but that one's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the better brown ales to my taste that I've had.
That's fair.
Alright, so there'll be some links below where you can find us other places on the internet.
And if you're not already subscribed to the Restricted Section University, please do.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.